Hi everyone, this is Tanner and welcome back to an episode of the Man to Man Coverage Podcast. I have my good friend and co-host Mason with me.
What's up, guys?
Mason, how are you doing? I know that the Cardinals lost, the Ravens lost, so it's kind of an ugly week for both of us in a sense, but I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, always doing well. You got some football tonight, Falcons versus Patriots. Let's hope rematch of the Super Bowl clash a couple of years ago, even though the teams are fairly different.
Yeah, the Falcons are still disappointing though, so not that much has changed. But today we have more of a casual episode. As of recent, we've been kind of doing pitching, like how to fix bad teams and coaching stuff, which I do really like. But I want to have more of a conversational episode. So what I want to do is that on the screen we have a website that went through all the free agents signing and trades of this offseason. We're just going to discuss them kind of casually, go division by division. This was from March, but I think it is still pretty up to date in all honesty. If we'll talk about anything else, we'll add it here. But we'll start with the AFC East with the Buffalo Bills. You know, the biggest signing has been Mitchell Trubisky here, playing like an MVP caliber quarterback. I mean, just by far one of the better quarterbacks this season. In all seriousness, I mean, he was signed as a backup. I actually think he's been pretty nice. He's been in there a couple of times, you know, good player to develop. Um, Matt Breida, I don't think he's barely touched the ball to my knowledge. You know, if he's been more involved, Mason.
He had a pretty decent week this past week, but other than that, he really hasn't um done too much. But yeah, Mitch Trubisky is a decent backup for him. I think that was like their goal, obviously, heading into the year. And I think honestly, I think a lot of teams would like to have Trubisky as their backup just because he's been in the league for a couple of years. So not a bad number two guy on your roster.
Yeah, he's like the perfect backup for today's game. Mobile, somewhat accurate at times, you know, really kind of fits that mold. The
Hmm.
Bills, they don't run the football. I don't know why. They're like, what is that? We're just gonna throw it, which I think running the football is holding them back actually. Looking at this list, really the guy who's been breaking out is Emmanuel Sanders. He's kind of been taking over for the Bills wide receiving core. I would say Stephon Diggs is still the number one and still has been great. Not as elite as last season, but Emmanuel Sanders is definitely the number two. He's definitely taking over that role from like Cole Beasley.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders. There's a lot of times where I see a receiver down the field, I'm like, oh, is it Stephon Diggs? And it turns out to be Emmanuel Sanders. He's just been playing really well. And then you also look at some of the other guys. I mean, they sent a lot of offensive linemen. I think the biggest one was Daryl Williams. I think he's done a solid job in that tackle role. Nothing crazy, but yeah, definitely Emmanuel Sanders has been a beast for him.
Yeah, he's been really nice. Disappointing if you have Diggs on fantasy because Sanders takes away all the points, but it is cool for him. I like Emmanuel Sanders a lot. Nice player, nice guy. He was on some pretty good teams. Um, when the Broncos won that Super Bowl 50. Then you also have Levi Wallace. Wasn't he a Bill last year and they just re-signed him again? Like,
Yeah, they re-signed a couple guys. When you see like Matt Milano, Levi Wallace, both those guys. Levi Wallace is a pretty solid corner for him, and Matt Milano, he's been a really good linebacker for him. So I definitely think both those re-signings have helped him out.
yeah, Levi Wallace is a pretty high tier slot corner.
Mhm.
Matt Milano is just like a good, steady player. He just kind of makes plays. You know, he's not excellent. He doesn't do anything like elite, but he doesn't do anything bad. Kind of reminds me of like the Christian Kirk of linebackers, just like a solid kind of player all around. Yeah, I don't think the Bills have made any trades because they really haven't had to. I do think they could have maybe improved their pass rush. They could have, I think, been in the Von Miller conversation, but Gregory Rousseau, someone they drafted in the first round, has really stepped up.
Yeah, Gregory Rousseau is what they wanted Ed Oliver to be. Basically, he's just
Mm-hmm.
been an absolute beast. He's got really long arms. Kind of reminds me of like a very, very young Chandler Jones, just because he's like super long.
Ooh.
He's got some muscle to him, but like he's just really good because of his very long arms. But yeah, he's been a beast for him.
Yeah, at Oliver, I remember him coming out. Everyone's like, he's gonna be fantastic. He hasn't been terrible, but he's not lived
But
up to the hype at all.
yeah, he was getting comparisons to like Aaron Donald and stuff, and he's been nowhere near that
He's like,
for sure.
Avengers Age of Ultron. Not bad, just disappointing. But next up we have the Dolphins. This one's tough with Jacoby Brissett. I love the dude. He just seems like an excellent human being, and Just like great guy off the field. On the field, I don't think he's been as bad. I know Dolphins fans like get him off the field. I'm like, he's not that bad. He's a strong arm quarterback. He's gonna make some mistakes. I feel like that he's been fined for $5 million. He's kind of mentoring Tua. This team lets Ryan Fitzpatrick go, so you get another player very similar to Fitzpatrick. This Will Fuller thing, Dolphins fans, when everyone they signed him, like, yes, we got our guy. I was like, fine, maybe could work out, maybe hasn't. Will Fuller ultimately he can't stay healthy, but I don't think he's really that great of a player. He's kind of just a deep threat, and that's it. His route running is very shaky. He can't really go up for the ball. He's just speed, and he's not that elusive. He's just kind of straight line speed. So that was, I think, kind of a risky deal. Matt Collins as well. I mean, it's Matt Collins. I mean, there's not a lot here. Jason McCourty's been nice. Shaquem Griffin's been, I don't think, not playing a ton. DeAndre McKinney's been fun. I don't know if there's anyone else who jumps out here on this list.
I don't know. That Jacoby Brissett thing's kind of like the Mitch Trubisky thing, where he's just a very solid backup,
Mhm.
good leader, and like he's had to step in because Tua's been hurt a lot of the times, and he's played fine. He hasn't played like obviously crazy, but I don't think they expected that from him. And then Will Fuller, I mean, it's like you get one good game from him a year, and then he's just injured the rest of it. So that signing is definitely not looking good for him. He's probably, I don't think they'll re-sign him because I think Jalen Waddle has been fantastic this year. I don't think enough people are talking about Jalen Waddle. Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith and all these other guys are getting a lot of attention for good reason. They've been good, but I think Jalen Waddle has been really good as well. I think he's going to really take over that number one role next year for the receiving core, especially because Devontae Parker has been kind of stagnant this year. He had a couple of good years previously, but he's kind of just been okay this year. But no, yeah, other than that, I mean, they went out and traded for Isaiah Wilson. That clearly hasn't worked out. It literally says they released him after the trade was finalized. So,
Oh, no.
but yeah, kind of like very similar to the Bills offseason where they get a backup quarterback and like a decent receiver, but their receiver hasn't really turned out as well as Emmanuel Sanders has.
Yeah, I don't think Will Fuller is that talented. Like he's fine. I just think that he's very one-dimensional. Um, I just think, Jalen Waddle, I don't know. I just feel like for the Dolphins that they have not drafted based on either like just get best play available, and that hasn't really been, really kind of what I don't know. I just don't think they've really helped their team the best way they could. I think Waddle was more of he's great and he's good, but there are other players available. Penei Sewell, you could have built, I think, more strategically. I think sometimes Miami tries to go for the home run hits while it really, hasn't worked out. So that's, I think, kind of what this comes down to. They can't run the football. That's been very evident. And while this is not a running back league, you still need to have that. I just feel like that Miami's really struggled with building their team smartly. I feel like they just go for the big players, and that's just not how you win.
Yeah, they've definitely been a little disappointing this year. I definitely had them playing better than they have. Their defense has been playing really well these past couple weeks, but the offense has been pretty not very good to say the least.
Yeah. And then we go to the Patriots. No lot to say here. Cam Newton, done. Brian Hoyer, nice backup. They had a lot of signings. Nelson Aguilar's been really disappointing. I thought that with Bill Belichick, Belichick would be able to kind of help Aguilar. He really hasn't been. That was kind of a miss of mine. I really thought that Aguilar in this system, I was very high on him, and that hasn't panned out well.
Mhm.
Kendrick Bourne's actually been pretty good. He's been like a pretty solid, nice player. I think people should talk about him more. Hunter Henry's been good in the red zone. I feel like that he always had that superstar potential. He just kind of had some injury stuff that held him back. Johnny Smith has been kind of underwhelming, but you really look at the success is David Andrews, Trent Brown helping us online with Mac Jones. And then, on the defensive side, Matt Judon's been really great for them. High tier pass rusher. Jalen Mills has been pretty solid. I feel like that he always makes kind of one good play a game. He's a solid player. So I still think New England needs wide receiver, but I think their defense and O-line, that's kind of what helps them win games, and they really hit on that. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, no, that Hunter Henry signing has been pretty solid. It's been like Mac Jones's go-to target in the red zone, so that's good to see. Jonnu Smith, I think, has been really disappointing. Um, and they paid him a lot of money, so hopefully he can step it up. Getting Trent Brown was huge for them. Bringing him back to New England, where he
Mhm,
started his career, he's been fantastic for him. And then really talking about that defensive signing, Matt Judon has been absolutely phenomenal for him. I mean,
mhm.
he's been, I feel like every time I watch a Patriots game, he's just always in the backfield. He's been an absolute menace to the other offensive lines this year. I mean, people always keep talking about him because he has his a notorious red long arm sleeve. So everyone's like, this guy with the red sleeves is great. And it's like, you got to start knowing his name because he is, I think he should get some Pro Bowl nods, if not make the Pro Bowl this year. I think he's been that good for the Patriots. But yeah, and then they re-signed Kyle Van Noy, who really hasn't done much for him. It's like Kyle Van Noy's like third trip with the Patriots. He really hasn't done much, but yeah, the Matt Judon signing was good. Jalen Mills has been okay. Justin Bethel, he's a really good special teamer, but yeah, other than that, um, just pretty solid signings besides like the Jonnu Smith one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's been overall, I think good. You definitely had some misses. I like the D line, by the way, because the Patriots win in the trenches. When you watch a Patriots game, it's not like the Chiefs or the Cardinals or the Cowboys where it's very exciting. They're kind of like a steady team. I think a lot of that has to do with the line play. That's very much the Bill Belichick way of winning it. Jets, Corey Davis has been really disappointing. He was always kind of a player who was good before, but he was never elite. And I thought, okay, well, maybe new system could work with him being the number one. He just isn't. He has some nice attributes. He kind of, for me, with Corey Davis, it's like a lot of plays. He gets open kind of quickly, but it doesn't stay open. He's not really fast. His route running is kind of shaky towards the end of routes, and his hands have struggled. So that's been a huge disappointment for the Jets. He has not worked out. Keenan Cole, I don't know if he's even on the team anymore. If so, he's hardly involved. Carl Lawson got injured, unfortunately, but I do think he'll be good. There's not a lot here. I mean, Marcus May, he's been like one of the solid defensive players. Vinny Curry, I don't think's even been playing that much at all. The O line is still struggling. The running game, you have Michael Carter, the rookie, who's actually played pretty good, so that's good to see. So, kind of these free agent signings were a bit irrelevant, but very disappointing for the Jets. I think that they definitely missed, and I think that I don't know if I'm blaming on them. I mean, Corey Davis could have been good. I still think they should have maybe signed some depth, maybe another wide receiver, maybe some more defensive help like a corner. LaMarcus Joyner, I mean, he's fine. I don't know. It just was kind of, I don't know if the word's disappointing, but they just really missed out.
I don't know. The biggest thing I see is like this team is like a rebuilding team. And then you look at a lot of the signings and they're all kind of like old veterans,
Mm-hmm.
besides like the additions of Corey Davis and Carl Lawson. But even then, like the two young players they signed, Corey Davis, I mean, he's young, but like he hasn't really, he's been okay throughout his career. Has never really shown much. And then Carl Lawson, he's been good. He just got injured, so you can't really hold that against them. But I mean, you look at like Sheldon Rankins, Lamarcus Joyner, Vinny Curry, Morgan Moses, Tyler Croft. All these guys are like really old veterans that will not help you. Will not help you win now and will not help you with the future. Those are kind of like depth guys, but they're starting. So I don't know really know what they're trying to do there, but kind of disappointing in my opinion in terms of like free agency for the Jets.
Yeah, I like what you said about the age stuff. And a lot of these players, like, they're not that good. They're not
Hmm.
like developmental pieces. They're just kind of fine players for a team like the Chiefs. Like the Chiefs would have this type of offseason, not the Jets. Going to the AFC North, the Ravens, I've liked what they've done. Juwan James, he's been, I think, kind of injured on and off. Same with Gus Edwards. Sammy Watkins, though, has been a nice signing. Sammy Watkins has always kind of been someone who's struggled with consistency, and I think he's been more consistent with Baltimore. He's a nice route runner, really over the middle. A lot of plays you just see him kind of go on these like ends, slant routes where Lamar throws him the ball and he runs after the catch. Very solid of what the team asks him to do. Um, it's just kind of tough because a lot of these players have been injured. Justin Houston's been a very underrated player. He's kind of joined Matt Judon in the underrated edge rusher category. I think the Ravens like their edge rushers, and Houston's been really nice. Um, I think that the O-line has struggled at times. So people like Alejandro Villanueva has been so up and down. He's been like terrible and then great some weeks. I like it overall, though. I think that the Sammy Watkins signing has been nice and just in Houston. And those are two good hits. The others have been fine. So I like what the Ravens did. They definitely addressed their needs and they did in a very smart way. I think them waiting to get Sammy Watkins was better than them spending money heavily on someone else like a T.Y. Hilton or Juju Smith-Schuster. So I think the Ravens signings have actually panned out pretty well for them.
Yeah, it was a solid offseason. They brought back a lot of people from last year too, like Derek Wolf. That was a great re-signing. I really like the Kevin Zeitler signing. I think he's a really underrated guard. But no, yeah, I think it was a very solid offseason. And just because they brought back a lot of old or players like Tyus Bowser, Pernell McPhee. One player I wish they would have brought back, we talked about him earlier, is Matt Judon, but they seem to be doing just fine without him just because Justin Houston has stepped up. But yeah, pretty solid offseason from the Ravens.
And their rookie,
Oneu or what?
yeah, I can never pronounce his name, but he's been great. So I think that
Yeah,
having him on a rookie deal plus signing Justin Houston has worked out pretty well. The Bengals, I think they're fine. I like them getting Trey Hendrickson, kind of defensive piece there. Larry Gunjobi, Chidobe Awuzie, Mike Hilton. Those are just nice pieces that work. This is what I think the Jets should have done. Some younger guys that can really plug and play in this defense. And this Bengals defense is better. They're not fantastic. They don't have a superstar player, but I think having depth pieces have allowed guys like Logan Wilson to kind of break out at linebacker because when you have a good pass rusher, people like Hendrickson, Ogunjobi, and a nice secondary, you're able to have other players come in. And I think the Bengals have built that way, very smart, kind of building up with the depth. I think that this team has seen improvement for a reason, and it's no shock to as a why, because I think that the defense has definitely become something that is very much a team effort. And they have a good pass rush to play very well down the field with people like Mike Hilton and Ricardo Allen on some snaps. So I really like this Bengals free agent class. I thought it was definitely pretty good.
yeah, I really like how they signed some young players like Awuzie. He's been really good.
Mhm.
Hendrickson's been solid for him, and then Larry Oganobi. He played for the Browns, I believe, before. He was a pretty
Yeah,
solid
he
like run
did.
stuffer. So I really like how they brought him in. He's another young player. And I also like how they brought back like Mike Daniels because it's a veteran guy who can kind of teach some of the young guys on the defense. Like that's what the Jets should have done. Like bring because like yeah, they signed like Vinny Curry, but I don't know if Vinny Curry is really a leader. Like Mike Daniels, like he's known to be a really good locker room guy. So I really like that for them. And I think they had a solid offseason. They get Ricardo Allen, another just veteran safety. And then Mike Hilton, I think, was a really underrated sighting. He was really good with the Steelers and they stole him away from their division rivals. So that was pretty solid by them.
This whole video is gonna be us trashing on the Jets free agency. um, what I love they do is that they lose Carl Lawson in free agency, and you're like, oh no, this is not good. And I think for many teams, I'll put them down. What they do very smartly is they say, okay, Larry Gunjobi, come over here. Trey Hendrickson, come over here. And they almost fill that Carl Lawson role with two kind of cheap free agent deals. And I think that's just really high level thinking from the general managers there in Cincinnati. Same, they lose William Jackson, who's been disappointing in Washington. You lose a corner, you think, man, we're done. Well, you have Mike Hilton. So I think that the Bengals played this really smart. Browns, there's not a lot to talk about. Takk McKinley's been the definition of underwhelming. Um, Rashad Higgins is fine. He's kind of like a third, fourth string wide receiver. Their secondary has struggled. John Johnson, I think, has been good. Not as great with the Rams. I think John Johnson works when he has like really elite like corners in front of him and he can kind of play the backfield. The Browns corners have struggled a bit this season. John Johnson has been kind of forced to do more. He's kind of given him some play. So he just has kind of been having a lot of pressure on him. But there's not a lot to say here. Jadeveon Clowney's been fine. I think that the defense has been very underwhelming for Cleveland. I think some of these signings haven't worked out. So I think that Joe Woods, the Browns DC, might need to go. Someone who, I don't know. I just don't think he's done a great job with this defense.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney, he's been okay, but kind of just my personal opinion, ever since he's been in the league, it's just kind of his name that holds more value than his play because
Hmm.
he's a good player. But I think people kind of just look at Jadeveon Clowney like, oh, former number one pick, stud at South Carolina, but he really hasn't done a whole lot. John Johnson, I still like that signing line. He's still a young player, fairly cheap deal, honestly, for 3 years. I think he's a solid. But then other than that, yeah, nothing crazy. Rashard Higgins really hasn't been involved in that offense. Dick McKinley, he had some good years with the Falcons, but other than that, he's been pretty underwhelming. Malik Jackson, veteran defensive tackle, nothing really to say about him. And then Cody Parkey, I mean, he's an okay kicker, but he's always going to be known for his
The
playoff
double
performance.
doink.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
but
okay, Cody.
yeah, I do like the Troy Hill signing a lot, though. I think he's really underrated. I think he's been underrated his entire career, in my opinion, but because he played really well with the Rams, so him and John Johnson kind of decided to leave Los Angeles and go to Cleveland together. But no, I really like the Troy Hill signing. That might be my favorite one, honestly, by the Browns this offseason.
Yeah, Troy Hill and John Johnson left LA to go to Cleveland, and OBJ did the opposite. So yeah, yeah, Troy Hill's been nice. I do like him. Steelers, um, the Juju thing, it's tough because I have respect for Juju of staying with his hometown, and I was very critical of Juju that he's just kind of a bit of a, I don't know, a goofball. And I'm like, okay, fine.
Goofy Goober.
But I do kind of appreciate him staying, even though he got injured. I do think that says a lot for him. And I do think he should stay with Pittsburgh. I think that if Big Ben retires, the Steelers going to have a new kind of identity to this team. I think having people like Juju kind of bring a lot of personality to this team. I think he's a good player. He reminds me of a lot of kind of like Michael Thomas's kind of ability of the short route running kind of mixed with like Christian Kirk's deep play ability. That's kind of where I see him, where Thomas is kind of this high end number one guy. Kirk's like a solid number two. Juju Smith-Schuster's kind of in the middle. That's kind of how I see him. I think he's a good player. He's not elite, but I think he can be pretty good at moments. The O-line has played better. I'll credit the Steelers there. A lot of these signings have worked out. Melvin Ingram, I don't know why they traded him. I thought he was actually playing pretty well with them, kind of opposite edge rusher of TJY. It's weird because when they traded him, it's like the Steelers had a good record. I don't know why. I thought he was actually playing pretty good with them as this veteran player who can get nice pressures. I mean, he's such a powerful player. Cameron Sutton's been nice. Steelers just have a good, solid secondary. Vince Williams, I do like that move a good amount. I think he's been solid at linebacker here and there. So yeah, I mean, I like the Steelers free agency, and then trades. I'm trying to think if they made any. I don't think so. Plus, they drafted Najee Harris, which has worked out very well for them. So I think you're looking pretty happy here with the way the Steelers did. I also love the trade Turner deal. That was a really nice kind of steal by them.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it perfectly. I think Juju kind of solidified himself as a number two guy. I don't know if he'll ever work his way up to number one. They just signed a lot of veterans, which I think this team kind of needed because, I mean, if they have Big Ben as their quarterback, they kind of want to win now, I guess. Yeah, the Melvin Ingram trade was a little weird just because I think he's a solid player. I don't think there's a really need to trade him unless he wanted to be traded. And Cameron Sutton, I really liked him on the Broncos. He was a solid corner for them, and then he came over to the Steelers. He's been a pretty solid nickel corner for them. And then like Zach Banner, Trey Turner, they've been solid offensive line pieces. But yeah, just a solid free agency, nothing crazy.
Yeah. Next up, AFC South. Disappointing by the Texans. They signed 20 million running backs. None of them have really worked out. I think what's been very disappointing is Philip Lindsay. People loved him with the Broncos. I was always low on him. I just don't think he's extremely talented, but he could be used better. Tyler Taylor, I actually did like that move initially. Unfortunately, he's been injured and he's played fine. Just, I do like the D line. I think the D line is solid actually to good. So Shaq Lawson's been good. I really loved him. Malik Collins, like there's some like decent pieces here. This secondary though needs a lot of help. Vernon Hargraves has been very disappointing. I think you could call him a draft bust when he was picked, I believe, in 2015 or 14 or 16, somewhere around there. Desmond King, I do like, but he can't be a number one. He's in that slot role. So I don't know. I think that the Texans, they definitely, I think, spent more money in kind of areas that they shouldn't, like running back. Like they had three guys signing with them. I don't know. I think some of it worked out well. It just kind of seemed like they spread money around with no game plan.
Yeah, no, I really am not a big. I was not a fan of this offseason when it was happening, and I'm still not a fan of it. Because it's kind of like the Jets, where you just get a bunch of veterans. Like the one veteran I do like a lot was Tyrod Taylor, just because they needed some quarterback to play. And Davis Mills, I mean, he's played while Tyrod's been injured, and that really hasn't been good. So I really like the Tyrod signing, but yeah, like Mark Ingram, he's not already on a different team. Rex Burkhead, he hasn't played a lot. Philip
He
Lindsay
is
and
good though when he does play.
yeah, he's good. And then Philip Lindsay and David Johnson, they like split carries. It's just a really weird dynamic. Then you get Chris Conley, who hasn't done much. Andre Roberts, he's a good special teamer, I think, no matter where he is. Then they went out and like they trade for like Ryan Izzo. It just makes no sense to me. And then but then like the corners they get, like Vernon Hargraves, like he literally got cut like 2 weeks ago, so he's not even on the team. Desmond King, I really like him.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Kirksey, I think he's a solid veteran, but I mean, you look at all these names and there's just no young talent. So I'm not a big believer in this team. Honestly, I think a lot of people had high hopes for them coming into the year, maybe them being like a 7-win team, but they're really on pace to. They're competing with the Lions to get that number one pick right now, which they should because they have a lot of holes they need to fill. But yeah, I am not a big fan of this offseason at all.
Yeah, they really missed. They need energy and they just don't have it.
Hmm.
Colts love the Carson Wentz trade. I think he's played very well. I think people just do not like Carson Wentz because when he plays well, no one talks about him. And then
Or
he
they
has a
make
game,
excuses for why he's good or why he
and then like
played
when
good
he
or whatever.
yeah, and then when he has a bad game, people are like, oh, that's Carson Wentz. I'm like, oh my gosh. I think he's a good quarterback. He reminds me of the opposite Kirk Cousins. I think both Carson Wentz and Kirk Cousins are here. Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback. He's going to make his throws on time, accurate. He does not extend plays. Carson Wentz, fine, good quarterback, can extend plays, struggles a bit more with accuracy. I think both Carson Wentz and Kirk Cousins are good quarterbacks. I think that they're very opposite of each other, but they're very similar. I like the Marlon Mack signing, get him depth. T.Y. Hilton, I don't know, actually. I was like, okay, I get why, but in hindsight, maybe he should have gone to another team like the Packers or the Chiefs. He just hasn't been used a ton. Plus, Michael Pittman's broken out. Xavier Rhodes kind of has regressed this season, but you get someone in that corner room. I do like Eric Fisher. He started the year bad, but he's picked it up. I don't know. I like the Carson Wentz trade a lot. I think the Colts are just a solid, good team. They drafted Quiddy Pay edge rusher who's been solid, good. That's just kind of the Colts. I think that, we already talked about what they could do in the offseason to fix their team, but I don't know. I really like this offseason overall by them. And even if T.Y. Hilton hasn't performed well, at least he's a good locker room guy and that veteran player presence, kind of like Larry Fitzgerald in his later years with the Cardinals. So I don't know. I overall look at this kind of free agency of the Colts, and I like it.
No, yeah, I definitely think they brought back a lot of players they needed to. Eric Fisher's been a solid sign. Carson Wentz, I really like the trade. I think he's been
Hmm.
pretty underrated this year.
He has been.
You'll never hear people talking about him though, because for some reason there's been even though like he's like a good person too. Like I don't know, people have a vendetta against Carson Wentz for some reason. Um, but no, I really do like this offseason. Xavier Rhodes, like he is the most weird player in NFL history. Like his career like literally goes from like Pro Bowl to garbage to Pro Bowl to garbage. He's kind of in between right now, like between Pro Bowl and garbage, but it's really weird how his career has worked out like that. But no, just a very sound offseason for them. Kind of reminds me of like the Steelers one where they just kind of bring back a lot of old faces and then get in some new ones to see what they can work with.
Yeah, I know it's kind of funny. I was sitting here thinking about T.Y. Hilton in his prime days. He reminds me a lot of Jamar Chase now. Like both are fast, both can get downfield. That is, I think, a comparison there. And T.Y. Hilton's very underrated. Jaguars,
Tim Tebow.
Titans, Julio Jones doesn't work out for them, which has been disappointing. I think that, this could have had great potential. I think part of it has been Julio being injured, but part of it's the scheme. I don't think they're really putting him in great position. Half the time he's over the middle of the field, which, yeah, he is good there, but I think he needs to be more of a perimeter player. I like the Jayon Brown signing. Bud Dupree has not worked out. We have mentioned that, not good. Janoris Jenkins been nice. It was kind of hit and miss with the Titans. I like the idea though. Trying to improve their defense, trying to improve the offense. And I think that aggressive mentality has helped them to an extent. I do like this Kendall Lamb. Sorry, I don't know that much about him, but kind of getting an O-lineman there looks like a pretty cheaper deal, I think is good. So I like the idea of the Titans. I think that Julio should have been better schemed, but I think also it's just kind of age catching up with him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I definitely think like Julio Jones is still seen as like this top receiver, which he can be, but I think it's a lot of nostalgia for people.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's nowhere near the top 5 in my opinion in terms of receivers. Like people still put him in their top 7. I just don't think he's there, especially because he cannot stay on the field. Which, I mean, the biggest saying is like availability is the best ability in football. I mean, you got to be on the field, and showcasing your talents. And then Bud Dupree, I mean, 5 years, 85 million is just it. Yeah, that is bizarre to me. And it will always be bizarre to me just because I think he was good with the Steelers, but I don't know if he's 85 million good, and then he really hasn't done much, and he's coming off a torn ACL. I don't know. The whole signing still doesn't make sense to me, but everything else I think was pretty solid by them, especially the Jayon Brown signing is like $5 million deal is pretty cheap. I like that a lot.
Yeah, the Bud Dupree one was confusing. And in AFC West, I like the Broncos getting Teddy Bridgewater. I do. I think I don't know. I feel like Teddy's played better than people say. Yeah, he's not great, but I feel like that you need to have realistic expectations. He'll be somewhat accurate. He's not great at the deep ball. He's a good leader. That's kind of what he's been in Denver. I think that, their secondary's been really nice. Pat Surtain, Cal for Ronald Darby. Really nice trio there. I like getting Justin Simmons back. He's, in my opinion, elite safety. I think that this Broncos defense, secondary wise, is good. Now their front, they have to work on it, obviously, but I don't know. I like what the Broncos did. Also like the Bobby Massey signing. I think he's been kind of decent. I think that the Broncos are a team that have a lot of young pieces. I think they've actually gone a young direction with some veteran guys there. So I like what the Broncos have done. They've been disappointing this season. I mean, they beat the Cowboys and then the Eagles beat them. So it's like, what's going on here? I really don't know, but I think that they're kind of a quarterback away team. They remind me a lot of the Washington football team where they have some nice defenders and some great offensive playmakers. And I think that this offseason definitely helped them.
No, yeah, definitely like what they did with the secondary. Got a lot of veterans who've turned out well, and match them with Pat Surtain has just been really solid. I really like the Teddy Bridgewater thing just because they got him for a 6th-round pick. So that's something crazy. And the Panthers are still paying a good amount of his salary. So it's like the Broncos really aren't paying him all that much. So I think he's a solid bridge quarterback. I think they're probably going to try to go and maybe get someone. I don't really know what their direction is because Drew Lock looked solid in the preseason, but then it really the coach does not like him at all. There's literally a quote that was like, "Does Drew Lock have any chance of starting this year?" And it was Big Fangio goes, "No," and I was like, "Oh, all right." So that's out the window. The Drew Lock Denver era is over, it seems, but no, just I really like the signing. Kyle Fuller, he's been okay. Ronald Darby's been good. Kareem Jackson, I think he's been really underrated his entire career. And I like how they got Justin Simmons locked up for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vic Fangio needs to go. I'm glad that the Eagles beat the Broncos. It's like, Vic Fangio is just, I don't know. I don't think, a bit of a tangent here. I don't think he's a good head coach or really a great leader. He seems like very complaining. I watch his press conferences and he's just, I don't know. He doesn't seem to take accountability. He's just like, well, we got to play better. I'm like, okay, dude, just, I think that I think that he's someone who's very hard on players, kind of that tough love, and I think that works out in some scenarios. I just don't think it's really shown in Denver. Chiefs, I like what they did with the O-line. I think getting Orlando Brown, Mike Remmers, Kyle Long, they've been good. Not as elite, but still good. And I like how they addressed it. I think people have been like, the Chiefs got too many alignment. I'm like, what do you mean? I think they got a good amount. You know, you can never have too many. Jerick McKinnon, he had some nice years with the Vikings later in his career. I don't think he could kind of be a nice running back. Since then, he's just kind of been injured and inconsistent. I do think that the defense, Daniel Sorensen, I kind of liked him in the Super Bowl run, and now he's terrible. Like, he is bad. If you go on NFL social media, people are like, yeah, this dude is terrible. Will Parks, I liked him with the Broncos and Eagles. I think he has some nice potential. They get some like fine defensive players, kind of trying to give some guys help, like Tucker Charlton, Mike Hughes, kind of what the Andy Reid special is. Okay, let's try to help these guys. Hasn't worked out great, but hasn't been terrible. I like the ideas here. I love the O-line, getting Orlando Brown and, Mike Remmers and Kyle Long. So the Chiefs, I think that with this O-line, you get Mahomes time. He's clicking in his element. We saw this Chiefs team destroy the Raiders. It's there's potential there, and I think you're seeing it.
Yeah, no, I really like the offensive line signing. I think one thing you can never have enough in football is offensive linemen, and I mean their play, they get hit every single play, so it's very easy for them to get injured. I like the Melvin Ingram trade they made at the trade deadline. That was really solid. Yeah, like you said about Daniel Sorensen, he's been pretty underwhelming. I feel like every time you see a deep ball against the Chiefs, you're like, oh, it's Daniel Sorensen. I like the Jerron Reed defensive tackle signing a lot. But no, just talking about the Chiefs a little bit, I think they're really turning up a switch. I think a lot of teams should be scared to play them. I think they had a really rough couple first weeks, but now they're really starting to look like the Chiefs again. I mean, I think a lot of people forget in 2020, the Chiefs Super Bowl run, they started off 6-4 and now they're 6-4 again. So it's like, it's not like a coincidence, but it's like a 6-4 team can go on to win the Super Bowl. It's like, it's not out of the question, especially after they dominated a really good Raiders team that we're about to talk about. Because I'm really high on the Raiders this year. I think they've been really good, especially with what they've had to deal with. But no, yeah, I really love the Orlando Brown thing. And then Creed Humphrey, the center they got from Oklahoma in the draft, he's been really good.
I loved Creed Humphrey. I don't know, my team's passed on him.
Yeah, but no, this Chiefs offensive line has been really solid, especially after that monstrosity in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, the Chiefs are weird. I've always mentioned this podcast. I was like, I'm like, yeah, they might not, like earlier this year when they were losing, like they might not have been winning a ton, but I'm like, I wouldn't want like the Ravens to face them because they have that scary element. Who do you think wins this weekend? Cowboys, Chiefs. I'm excited for that game. I think that could be game of the year candidate, in all honesty.
No, I think that game's going to be really good, but I don't know the way Mahomes and this team's playing. I'm going to go the Chiefs. I think with the Chiefs, one thing they do really good is that they really live off of last week and the hype going like how dominant they were. I feel like when they're dominant, they really bring that over to the next weekend, which a lot of teams really can't do. It's really hard to replicate that, but the Chiefs have been able to do that the past couple of years. So I think they're going to bring that energy into next week. And especially, I think they want to like prove a point that like if they beat the Cowboys, they're like, yeah, we're the Chiefs still. Like we're not some team that's to be messed with type of thing.
Yeah, I believe that this game is going to be incredibly high scoring. I think it's going to be back and forth, last second kick. I think it's going to be really great. Hopefully, I think, we want to choose Packers to be great. And then, okay. I think that hopefully this game delivers the hype. Raiders, we both did not like the Kenyon Drake signing. That's been a fantastic take. He has just not been there being used, and he's a fine player. Zay Jones, I do like him, actually. I think he has that high potential. But he's very inconsistent with the wide receiver position opening up. I hope he gets some more targets. Willie Snead, I actually think is on. I haven't seen him.
I think they released him.
Yeah, O-line, they released a lot of guys. They get some guys. It kind of is like, okay. Defense, Yannick Ngakoue's been good. That pass rush with the Raiders has been one of the good things about the defense. The defense has been better with the Raiders. People like, I love Casey Hayward. I'm one of his biggest fans. And I think that has played pretty well. Rasul Douglas is fine. KJ Wright's good. I think the defense is better. So I don't think the Raiders were terrible. I think offensively they kind of missed, but defensively, I think that they really had some nice improvements. I think Mike Mayock deserves some credit. These are kind of Mike Mayock guys, these high athletic guys. You watch Mike Mayock's draft coverage, he loves these athletic players, and I think that they definitely hit on them.
Yeah, I think basically what they did this offseason was get a lot of depth. And I think the Raiders' success this year is just basically their existing players just kind of improving. Like you got Max Crosby, Derek
Some of
Carr's
that
having
has been with Ngakwe. Cosme and
yeah,
Ngakwe have been good
yeah,
together.
Derek Carr is having a career year. Then they've had a lot of receivers step up, like Hunter Renfro, Brian Edwards, Darren Waller is Darren Waller. Literally no explanation for him, but I think this team has a lot of heart. And I'm honestly rooting for them just because I think they've been through a lot of stuff this year. So it'd be really cool to see them make the playoffs through all the adversity because I think a lot of other teams could not deal with that and kind of just fall off the ship. I mean, you look at the Jaguars. I mean, they still have their head coach, but there's just so much drama with that team. It's just not looking well. But no, just a solid offseason by the Raiders.
Do you think they beat the Bengals this week? That's gonna be a fun game. I think they lose because I think Joe Burrow off the bye week. I think he's gonna have a really good day. The Raiders passers could get to him. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I think Jamar Chase might have a field day
Hmm.
against the Raiders secondary. I cannot lie. So I could see the Bengals winning for sure.
Yeah, I am. This is kind of off topic. I'll go over the Chargers real quick. Love what they did. O line help Herbert. They also drafted Rashawn Slater. That's about it. And um, do you have anything to add with the Chargers, Mason? I do like that Corey Lindsey deal. That was a steal. Matt Filer's been nice.
No, yeah, that Lindsley signing and Rashawn Slater thing that was pretty much the only thing they did, but it's really helped out the team a lot.
Yeah, but going back to the Raiders, I'm just kind of done with Derek Carr here. I just kind of am. I think that this is kind of how he's been through his career. He'll have great games. Like he had one against the Eagles where he was like, oh my gosh, he only had like two incompletions. And then he has games like the Chiefs where he just falls flat. I just don't think that he's a good fit for the Raiders. The Raiders don't have an elite defense. Derek Carr kind of needs, I think, a great defense to win. I think like if he doesn't have the best offensive weapons, he'll do fine. I actually think he should go to the Giants. I would love that trade or Washington. Both of those two teams have some nice defenses and they have quarterback issues. So I'd love Derek Carr to go there. I think him in Washington would be great. I think him and Ron Rivera would get along so well. They both seem just like great people, very generous guys. I think Derek Carr with Terry McLaurin could kind of bring that some of that Mari Cooper, Michael Crabtree connection from like 2016. I don't know. I just think Derek Carr of the Raiders, he's a nice guy and he's a good quarterback, but he's kind of like Andy Dalton from like 5 years ago, just a solid player. I think that he needs to go to another team because I think the Raiders should draft someone, maybe like a Matt Corral or Sam Howell, kind of one of those big play guys. I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, yeah, I definitely think Derek Carr is good, but I think like a new change of scenery could help him. Maybe if he was like with a football team or something, Washington football team, a team that could really use a veteran quarterback type of thing. Um, but yeah, if they get like a guy in the draft, I'd really want them to see get a guy like Carson Strong, keep him in
Mhm.
Nevada, something like that. Matt Corral. I don't know if they'll have a high enough pick to get Corral, but if they end up trading up for him, I'd like to see that. Sam Howell, definitely that's obtainable for sure. But no, a guy like Carson Strong, I think would fit this team really well.
I love Carson Strong. I've done some scouting and I am very high on him. I think he's kind of like similar to Derek Carr in a sense, kind of like the Mac Jones,
Hmm.
Derek Carr type. Do not like Matt Corral, by the way. I'm not very high on him. I think that well, that's a video for another time, but I'm just this he just turns the ball over. I don't anyways. Looking at the games real quick, we'll do the NFC another video. Are there any games you're excited for, Mason? I think the Cardinals bounce back against Seattle.
Yeah, I really hope Kyler plays this week, or else it's going to be an ugly game again. I'm honestly excited for the Ravens Bears game. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the Bears always give a lot of fight, and then the Ravens they always play good, and then the Cowboys Chiefs. We talked about that. That's going to be a great game. Steelers. Chargers, I think that's going to be a solid Sunday night game. I think the Steelers have been playing really well besides last week, but Big Ben wasn't playing, so I'm not going to really hold that against them. And then Chargers kind of need that bounce back win. I think both these teams really need a win this
Hmm.
week, so we'll see who comes out on top. But also, the one thing I have to say is like, who made the Giants and Buccaneers a Monday night game again? They did it again. They did it last year, and they did it again this year. I just cannot stand it. The Giants have more primetime games than the Cardinals. That's all I'm going to say. Like, it's just it's ridiculous, but
Yeah.
uh,
I
cannot stand it.
I complained about this in the prediction video, but I think the NFL has gone more of the storyline elements and actually good matchups. I will say this though, the Giants have played teams tough. They beat the Raiders, they
Mhm.
played the Chiefs close. That would be something they beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. I agree with you. That Steelers Chargers game is going to be close. I could see the Steelers winning, kind of shutting down Herbert. I could see Herbert winning. Herbert's played very well. So I think either or Ravens, Bears, Jackson Fields, that's going to be a lot of fun. Um, you also have this Washington Panthers game, you know,
That'll be
Cam,
really fun.
yeah, Cam Newton, Ron Rivera. I do want to say real quick here before we end off that I do think Cam Newton, people are overreacting a bit from his performance. Yes, it was very nice to see him coming back. And yes, he ran the ball well and had a nice touchdown. Those were two good things, but I want to see more of him. I could just see a world where Cam Newton starts and goes like 17 out of 20 for like one touchdown, one pick, and like 200 yards. Like we disappoint. So I definitely love the energy. I think the Panthers will fight and they could win some games down the stretch. I just don't know if Cam Newton is going to be as fantastic as people say. Um, I also am excited for this Colts Bills game. I actually have the Colts winning in my prediction video. I feel like Jonathan Taylor has been on a hot streak here, and I think that this Bills team's been kind of a bit disappointing. I don't know if you feel the same way, Mason, but I don't know. The defense has been a bit underwhelming. They're not running the football. I don't know. I could see the Colts dominating the clock.
Yeah, no, I think the Bills have definitely been disappointing just because I feel like every time I got on social media, not this week specifically, but like 2 or 3 weeks ago, it's like Josh Allen is the MVP front runner. The Bills are the Super Bowl favorites. I'm like, where is it all this coming from? I feel like Josh Allen has been like regressed a little bit from last year, in my opinion. And the same with the Bills in general. I feel like they've regressed since last year. I mean, they lose bad games to bad teams. I mean, that's not a Super Bowl team in my opinion. You have to win against bad teams. Like, but I don't know. I think they've definitely been disappointing. I could definitely see the Colts winning. I think Jonathan Taylor has been an absolute stud. I think he's making a solid case if he continues to play like this to win maybe Offensive Player of the Year. He's just been that good for him.
Or
Um,
MVP. I mean, he's really helped this Colts team and quarterback. I mean, Kyle Murray plays great injury, Aaron Rodgers plays well and then stuff. And then like Brady, Stafford, Lamar, they've all had their down games. I would love to see Jonathan Taylor win MVP.
yeah,
That
that'd
would
be really cool because everyone's talking about Derrick Henry. When Derrick Henry is good, but I mean, Jonathan Taylor already has the same amount of yards as Derrick Henry, and he has a lot less carries. And I know Derrick Henry has missed games, but if you compare the carries, you can just see how dominant Taylor has been this year. Um, Also, I think the Colts have been a really good team lately. I mean, they started off 2-4. I think they're a really good 2-4 team. They just had a tough schedule in the beginning. Like they had to play the
mhm.
Seahawks, Ravens, Rams,
Rams. Yeah.
stuff like that. Um, so I think they're making a late push for the playoffs. And like, say they go in the playoffs, I could definitely see them having like a 2019 Titans run where they just feed their running back and they make it all the way to the AFC Championship game or something. But yeah, they've been really good lately.
That would be cool.
Hmm.
Another game I'm excited about is 49ers Jaguars. I feel like that could be close. Jaguars have been playing better recently. I feel like they've had some fight. I know you love Trevor Lawrence Mason. He hasn't played that well, but the Jaguars need wide receiver. I do not think this is all on Trevor Lawrence. Like Laviska Shenault's looking like a draft bust, in all honesty. He is not looking too good.
Yeah, Laviska Shenault's been pretty underwhelming. DJ Chark's been injured. Marvin Jones, he's been okay when he gets the ball,
I
but
do like him.
yeah, he's been solid. I just think this entire Jaguars team just needs a lot of work to do, especially on that front office standpoint. Because I think Urban Meyer's offense and is so outdated, or just does not work at all in the NFL. And I don't know why he hasn't seen it. And he also just does not give the ball to James Robinson some games. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah, that's
James
true.
Robinson will have like 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the next week they'll give him like 7 carries. I'm like, why? Why are you making Trevor Lawrence throw 60 times a game type of thing? But
Yeah.
yeah.
I think he was a Pro Bowl last year, at least in the conversation. Been
Mhm.
disappointing. Speaking of Pro Bowl, everyone, that's going to do it for this episode. But next week, it'll be kind of day before Thanksgiving. We're going to be doing the Pro Bowl. I feel like that would be cool, getting our votes and talking about that. Hope you all enjoy this. Enjoy this week of football. Some pretty fun games here. Hope you all enjoy. Until then, everyone, take care and have a good one. Peace.